Welcome to the CEO's Open Discussions Corner at PortfolioWealthGlobal.com. My name is Michelle Holliday. Our guest today is one of the most iconic names within the mining industry, Mr. Ross Beatty. Ross is a geologist and a resource company entrepreneur. He has created serial success in founding and building financial empires within the resource sector. Today, he is the founder and chairman of both Pan American Silver, one of the world's leading silver producers, and simultaneously Equinox Gold, which is a major gold producer. His business plan is consistently referenced by mining entrepreneurs all around the world, and we are honored to have him with us today. Ross, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm well, thank you, Michelle. Thank you very much for that flattering introduction.
We are so honored to have you here, a legend with us, and you have built a legendary reputation for the creation of enormous wealth with success after success within an industry which is notoriously difficult to even get one success. How did you start your career, and what do you attribute this to? Is it instinct?
You know, it's hard to pinpoint one thing. I would say my success has been many things, and it starts with luck. I've been a hell of a lucky guy. I've been lucky in all kinds of different ways in where I was born and how I was brought up. But I've had this sort of weird little internal drive to travel, to constantly change. I'm impatient. And I've been lucky to work with good people, because you can't do any of this stuff yourself. You've got to work with teams, and it's been wonderful with the people I've worked with. So, but it's especially been lucky. You know, my first company, I started back in '85. It was a gold exploration company, and we found a gold mine. Well, that's very, very rare, and it's very hard to do. And we actually hung on to it, and we made deals that didn't give away the company. And finally, a big American mining company came along and bought my first company after 9 years of doing all kinds of stupid, crazy, dumb things. And you know, with that first fortune, I was able to, you know, start a couple more companies sort of the next day, and one of which was Pan American, and it you know, it grew. Single focus was on trying to be the world's best silver company. And after 25 years, you know, now it's been 26 years now. It is the world's preeminent silver mining company. It's a big company with, you know, 12,000 employees and 12 operating gold mines and silver mines in Latin America and North America. So that all it just kind of happened. And it's very hard to sort of pinpoint how it all happened and why other people can't be so successful. There are some people who are serially successful, and for some reason, there's just something they have that others don't. And it's hard for me to put a finger on it.
It's really interesting. I've heard you started off with $3,000 and a dream. Yeah. So that's kind of the story that goes around. And for someone such as yourself, please, for everybody to have a little bit of an overview, please just quickly list the companies that you have founded throughout your career.
That would take a long time. I've founded, I think, 15 companies now. And they're in two categories. One category would be operating companies. So there's been 4 companies that were running operations. 3 were in the mining business, and 1 was a renewable energy company. We had dozens of solar farms, wind farms, geothermal plants, and hydro operations. And we merged that company with another big company, and now it's a very big company. So, and I'm still very active in that. So that was the renewable energy business. So the operating businesses, there were 4 of those, and then there were, I think we've had 11 in a category where you would call them exploration companies, where we acquired a small property somewhere. We did a bunch of exploration on it, and then we did a feasibility study on it, or an economic study, and confirmed the value, and then we de-risked the project. So we de-risked it, meaning we acquired the land, we got water rights, we got we confirmed there was no fatal flaw to development of those deposits into producing mines. And when we had done that, we sold them to large companies. So we've done that. You know, I've done that 11 times now. Or sorry, I've done that 9 times. I've still got 2 companies in that category left that are exploration companies. One is called Lumina Gold, and the other one is called Luminex, and they both trade on the Toronto Stock Exchange, Venture Exchange. And so those are the exploration companies, and then the 2 companies I have left, or you could say 3 actually, would be the renewable energy company, which is now called Interchex in Montreal based, and then Pan American Silver and Equinox Gold. Those are the operating precious metals companies. So that's my world today, and it's been a lot of fun. Having said all of that, I think my Equinox Gold, which we just started a couple of years ago, is probably going to be my last company. I'm ready to hang up the what's the expression? Hang up my spurs.
Oh, wow. Now, you've said this is an addictive industry, so how easy is that going to be?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, we'll see, won't we?
Right?
I'll give it a shot. I may just move on to
5 years later,
different chapter.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I want to get your take on the impact of what's happening right now throughout the world, the COVID-19 crisis, also what's taking place after the death of the gentleman, George Floyd. What do you see coming as far as the world goes? Ross, do you think we're ever going to get back to what we consider to be normal?
Boy, that was a big question. I think the George Floyd situation is somewhat unique to America. I don't see that as a global problem. The COVID crisis is a true global problem, and it's the biggest global pandemic in my lifetime, in your lifetime, everybody's lifetime. So it's created all kinds of unique challenges for the world. And that will filter into, I think, truly long-term consequences for everything and everybody everywhere. How we work, how we play, how we travel, how our economy grows, where the jobs are going to be, whether we actually have a lot of jobs, how those jobs exist. I am somewhat pessimistic about our ability to return to how things were like, last year. I think that party's over, and there's going to be some new kind of a normal happening, and I'm not able to predict really how it's going to shape up, but it's going to be different. It's going to be profoundly different. In some ways, I would look at an analogy of the Roaring '20s, when we had this party time, economic boom, lots of money, rampant stock market, craziness. And that shifted suddenly when the Great Depression happened into a very different world in the '30s. It wasn't a very nice world, and it caused a lot of strain and a lot of hardship. And then, of course, that moved to the Second World War, and after the Second World War, another great boom that happened that lasted 20 or 25 years. And so I think you're going to see that kind of major shift. I don't think it's going to be a Great Depression like we saw in the '30s. At least I hope not. But it's definitely going to be different, and people are not going to be able to use the same rules that played out in the last really up until January this year in terms of the next cycle. It's going to be different.
How is that going to impact the mining industry? Because I've heard you say that the time to start a company is during times when things are not going well, because you don't want to start your company at the top. What's your impression, and talk to us about that?
Sure. Well, when you say the mining industry is many things, right? The mining industry, there's iron mines, and there are coal mines, and then there are gold mines. So you can't sort of lump it all together, because right now, when you look at the whole mining industry, actually it's in pretty bad shape. If you're a copper miner or a zinc miner or a nickel miner, you're not very happy right now. You've been affected by the COVID shutdown in the world, and all these major metal markets are in bearish territory. So the companies that mine them are not very happy, the big companies and the small companies. But if you're a gold company or a silver company, we're seeing gold prices right now very close to their all-time highs. And that's a very happy time to be a gold producer or a silver producer. Silver is starting to catch up. Silver, of course, is in the middle. Silver's a little bit of a precious metal and a little bit of an industrial metal, and it never really knows which. If major markets are terrible the way they've been for the last 3 months, silver gets affected negatively, and so its price came down. But then when people have a lot of fear and a lot of worry, and are worried especially about the debasement of fiat currencies, which governments are printing like crazy right now and debasing, they want to buy something that has been a long-term traditional store of value like gold. And when gold goes up, silver gets pulled along with it, because it's kind of poor man's gold. It's a gold proxy. It's a true precious metal. So if you're a mining company like we are, luckily producing a lot of silver and gold, Pan American and Equinox especially, you're in pretty happy times. I mean, Pan American's share price has gone up 400% just in the last year. Not bad, and that's a blue chip company. So we're pretty happy. But if you're a thermal coal company, most of those companies have gone bankrupt lately because nobody wants to buy thermal coal. It's made for making dirty electricity, and there's a big shift to wind power and solar power and so on. So that's kind of like a dinosaur business. Or you know what's happened to oil and gas? Same thing. Oil has been crushed. So it's a tale of many different worlds in the mining game, depending on which metal you're mining.
As someone who has been so immersed in this industry for such a long time, what is your view on price manipulation? I mean, it's such a debated topic. So I thought, I'm going to ask him. What do you think?
I've been asked that question many times in my career, especially by silver bulls, I would say. Mm-hmm. And my answer is always the same. But I have to say, I get bricks thrown at me an awful lot. I get a lot of hostile emails, hostile comments from people. Conspiracy theorists they're like a unique breed. And it's like, honestly, it's like believing in the tooth fairy. You either do or you don't. Anybody can invent conspiracy theories. It's a simple thing to do. Anybody with an imagination can make it an excuse for any kind of behavior, any kind of market reality. But it's just as easy, and I've found it extremely easy, to explain things that go on in the market, particularly the gold and silver market, with ordinary rules of supply and demand. When you understand silver or gold supply, where it comes from, who mines it, who supplies it, and then who buys it, both people who really need it as physical users and speculators, it's simple to explain price movements without having to rely on conspiracy theories. So I'm sorry to say and disappoint, all of the people who have a contrary view. I don't believe in conspiracy theories. I will say, though, I mean, with that general principle, I can see, not really for silver. I don't think anybody can really manipulate silver properly for any kind of length of time, including the big banks. I can see Uncle Sam actually tinkering with the gold market, because, of course, if people start buying a lot of gold, it's really a vote against the performance of the Fed, the performance of the U.S. government, especially, or global governments. It's a vote against having your wealth in paper as opposed to wanting to hold it in physical metal. And so, because the U.S. has so much gold in its reserves, I can see it deploying that gold from time to time to kind of put a lid on the price, just to act as a brake against a kind of a runaway gold price, which is a signal of fear and worry in financial markets that the federal government doesn't actually want people to feel. Now, does that actually happen? I don't know, but I can see them doing that. That's about the only place, because they have an awful lot of gold that's sitting around otherwise just as a store of value for the Fed as a balance sheet asset. But I've got no evidence that exists. I can just see it happening as a possibility.
That's very interesting, because it's sort of a contrarian view as opposed to everyone else in the world talking about the manipulation.
Yeah, well, you may listen to the wrong people, Michelle.
Right, I probably do.
There is a subset that are very virulent and very opinionated about that kind of stuff, and you may be getting that kind of view more proportionate to your listeners or otherwise. But the people that we deal with, we produce 25 to 30 million ounces of silver every year. We find a market for it. We've been in the business an awful long time, and as I said, I can explain price movements quite simply by normal supply and demand. Why invent something?
Right. It's exciting enough. You don't need to actually invent something. Is there any real imminent or acute shortages of any key minerals right now, specifically any metals that are going to be required in escalating amounts as certain industries start to take off?
The answer to that is yes, to small metals or specialty metals like cobalt or certain rare earth elements. these are specialty metals that are only found in certain places in the Earth's crust, or platinum or palladium, especially palladium right now. And they're needed for certain critical applications. The rare earths are used in many as magnets in many high-tech applications. Cobalt is used in batteries for electric cars and that kind of thing. Palladium is very important as a catalyst, and it's used in cleaning up exhaust emissions. And there's only a few places on the Earth where those exist. So where there's a lot of new demand, the price goes crazy. And what that does is, because supply and demand is a real thing, when the price goes crazy, people stop using it as much. And so so the market does have a way of adjusting things over time. Right now, cobalt is found only in a couple of places in the Earth in big ways, and one is in the middle of nowhere in Africa, in a place called DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo. They produce 60% of the world's cobalt. Well, the price of cobalt has gone so high that all of a sudden battery companies stopped using cobalt in their batteries. Tesla, for example, they're decreasing the amount of cobalt they use. Rare earth metals, mainly China. That's where rare earth metals come from. So if you're an American consumer of rare earth elements, you don't want to be buying from China, because they do this all the time. They change quotas and they stop supplying it to the world, and it's a risky thing. So those companies shift away from using those rare earths into other metals. It's just how things work over the long term. I don't really see a critical shortage of any metal that can't be substituted for something else over the long term. That's what clever entrepreneurs and clever innovators do. They get those market dislocations, they deal with them, and they find technological solutions. And the best people in the world to do that, quite frankly, are American entrepreneurs. They're unbelievable.
Wonderful. Now, so there's nothing to the notion that there's a silver shortage right now happening?
No, nothing. Nothing whatsoever. There's lots of silver in the world. In the ground, there's literally billions of ounces in churches and people's grandparents' silverware cupboards. There's lots of silver out there that could be mobilized if we really had a runaway price.
I want to turn to your companies that you're chairman of right now, being Pan American Silver and, of course, Equinox Gold. Equinox Gold being fairly new, and I know you've said this is going to be your last company, but I'd love for you to just sort of nutshell both of them.
Sure. Well, I'll start with Pan American Silver. Pan American, I began in 1994, and my focus then, we had a 10-cent share price, no assets, no employees, nothing. But I had a great idea. I was going to build the world's biggest silver mining company. And I was so confident. I knew everything about silver. I was positive. Silver was $5 an ounce then, and I was positive by 2000 it would be way over $10 an ounce and heading up, because I knew there was a shortage, and I knew that everybody was going to buy silver because the world was going to come to an end. And needless to say, of course, by 2000, 2001, silver was not at double. It was at an all-time low. It was lower than when we started. And I was completely wrong. And I realized, the more I really got into silver, the more I looked into it, the more I realized I didn't know. Ignorance is bliss. Ignorance. Most great promoters come from a position of great ignorance. And the more they learn, the more they get kind of humbled by what they don't know, and are much less confident in making great predictions. So, but in the meantime, even though the price went down, we had built a company full of silver deposits, silver assets, and over time we built mines, and now we're a very large company. So Pan American, as I said, has 12 operating mines in Latin America and Canada, and it's a great blue chip silver stock. It's probably we think it's the preeminent silver play in the world. So it's been, for me, it's been very successful. Great balance sheet, great management team. None of this could happen without great management teams, by the way. You certainly, a guy like me can't do any of this stuff by himself. And so that's an established business. Equinox Gold is a little different. We started Equinox 2.5 years ago. I sold my renewable energy company, and then the next day kind of started the gold company, Equinox. And it was named after my very first company, which was Equinox Resources, that I started in '85. So it's kind of, I'm bookending my career with Equinoxes, if you can follow that. But I'm very bullish on gold. I'm very, very, and I have been for several years. The COVID crisis just added gasoline to the fire. It was already a bull market in gold by early this year. The bull market in gold started in 2016. So we started Equinox at the end of 2017. It's just over 2 years old now, and it was intended to be a big gold play. You know, the bigger the better, because the bigger you can build a gold company, the more leverage you can offer your shareholders to the price of gold, both on your income statement with respect to your gold production and on your balance sheet with respect to your gold reserves and resources. Those are things in the ground that are going to sustain you for a long, long time as an operating business. So we've been busy in the last 2 years, and just to sort of fast forward it today, Equinox has 6 operating gold mines, 4 in Brazil, 1 in Mexico, and 1 in California. We're building another one right now in California. We're expanding one in Mexico, and we're building a new one in Brazil. The long and the short of it is that we'll produce about 600,000 ounces this year, about 850,000 ounces next year, and by the end of the year next year, we should be producing at an annual rate of about 1 million ounces of gold per year. So that's kind of a nice, for me, a very happy story where we've got almost 500 million bucks in the bank, just making lots of cash flow right now. The gold price is at a high. I think it's going to go much, much higher, and that's the happy story of Equinox Gold. Just you're on camera. That's my way of fetching some things here.
There you go.
So anyway, it's been a very happy story, and I'm very pleased that we were right in our view of gold as a commodity that was going to be a beneficiary of all this money printing that's going on and all this the mayhem that's happening in the world today, and the COVID crisis, as I said, it's just added to that. So it's a good place to be right now.
Does it take a certain type of person or personality to succeed in this sector?
Yes, I think it does. I really think it does. I've observed people who've succeeded and who haven't. And the first thing, you have to be able to work with a team. You have to work with lots of people because you can't do any of this yourself. And certainly the entrepreneurs who really stand out are pretty driven people as a rule. They're people with goals and focuses, and who really are able to bring along their teams, but also sell their dreams to shareholders. You know, the only way you can make these companies, these are all public companies in my experience. I've had 15 public companies. So the only way you can bring shareholders along is to create a story that they believe is going to be taking $1 of their money and make it into $2 or $3 over the medium term. You've got to convince them that you're building something that's going to be of abiding value. And it doesn't matter whether you're a mining entrepreneur or an oil and gas entrepreneur or a tech entrepreneur. It's the same thing. You've got to basically spin that story to part them with their money that you then spend and try to increase in value. I mean, that's the game. And there are some people who can do it well and some people who can't. I'm still surprised more people don't succeed because it doesn't seem to me to be terribly complicated. But as I said, the thing that it does require in our business, at least, is luck. And I've had good luck, and it's worked well for me.
Yes. Now, my final question is probably going to be the most difficult one for you. I'd like to know if there's any certain moment that stands out as one of the most exciting moments in your career. And as a man who's had many of them, is there something that snaps to mind immediately?
You know, I've had a lot of near-death experiences in my career. I mean, I've embraced risk. I've gone to a lot of strange places. I mean, a lot of my career, there was nowhere I wouldn't go. I certainly have had, I can tell you, a couple of terrible experiences, and one was spending three years working in Russia and on a huge silver deposit there, and finally getting blown up and attacked in a completely corrupt way, and having to leave after 3 years of hard work. So that was certainly the worst experience in my career. There have been many riots in West Africa and bullets shooting at me in Haiti and all sorts of tropical diseases. I've got cerebral malaria and toxoplasmosis, all sorts of stuff. Those are all the sort of the things that you kind of just live with as you get through this journey. There are so many great experiences, though. I've been so lucky and so just blessed. Really supportive shareholders and the whole ecosystem around building these companies, the engineers, the accountants, the lawyers, the geologists, the whole group who have helped me build these companies. It's just been so rewarding. And I've rewarded them back in giving good wealth creation and good capital gains. And that wealth goes to everybody. It goes to shareholders, it goes to companies, it goes to communities, it goes to local people, employees, countries through taxes and royalties. The mining business does generate enormous wealth, and that wealth is shared by thousands. So that's been very, very fulfilling to me to be able to, we have communities today in all of our mines, well over, we have probably 150,000 people who live off of the wealth that comes out of our mines, and their children and their children. And so it's been very fulfilling to create that wealth and see that kind of improvement in people's lives that come out of the mining industry.
I think that's something that most people don't even realize is the impact that a successful mining company can have on a community, on a country, even because of the massive amount of wealth that it can create.
For sure.
Yeah. Mr. Ross Beaty, thank you so much for coming on this show today.
It's my great pleasure. Thank you very much.
And we will have you back soon.
Okay.
Mr. Ross Beaty, geologist, legendary mining entrepreneur, founder and chairman of Pan American Silver and Equinox Gold Corporation. For the CEO's Open Discussions Corner, I'm Michelle Holliday at PortfolioWealthGlobal.com.